Hi, this is Bruce May. I'm the Chief Content Officer for the International Sustainable Resilience Center. I'm here with David Dodd, the founder of the ISRC, and also Calandra Cruickshank, who is the president of Statebook. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Bruce. Great to be here.
So David, I wanted to start with you. I wanted to ask you about the Economic Resilience Scorecard. Can we start with you just explaining what it is in simple terms?
Sure. This came about as a result of a presentation at a conference I was attending. My background is economic development, and I got into resilience through Hurricane Katrina. And in that presentation, they had site location consultants that make recommendations for where large corporate facilities are going to be located. And they were talking about this new thing that's on everyone's radar screen called disaster resilience. And it just hit me, the idea of creating a self-assessment that would, number one, let communities know where they are in implementing resilience. Number two, help them build capacity to implement more effective and more comprehensive resilience might be something community interested in. So I approached Calandra, whose amazing company, Statebook International, provides a significant, huge database and analytics and everything else. And I said, hey, Calandra, do you think we could look at, building a self-assessment tool that would also educate communities and then add further value through that? And she was like, absolutely. So we partnered on this, and I'll let Calandra take it from there, anything that I missed, because usually I do.
Well, Calandra, tell us more about it. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, well, EDA, the federal EDA recently instituted new guidelines for regional comprehensive economic development strategy reports that communities have to submit to EDA every 5 years. And part of their new guidelines included that these regions institute new resiliency programs for their communities in response to all of the increased natural disasters, whether it's hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and so forth. And also in response to things like the pandemic, which of course nobody had planned for, right? And so with these new resiliency guidelines, we recognized that there was an urgent need for communities to have a step-by-step framework that would help them address all of the different and implement step-by-step guidelines to implement all of the different programs and task forces and communication strategies and structures that they need in order to increase resilience. And there is a lot of talk about resilience, but very little tangible deliverables that help them understand each step that they need to take. And the Economic Resilience Scorecard that David's group has put together and that we've then digitized for him is actually both. So it helps you assess your baseline of where you are today in your community, and then it provides that framework that you need to understand how to improve the resiliency in your region at both the local, regional, and state levels, and even what specific organizations you need to partner with and bring to the table as your stakeholders, regional stakeholders, to be able to respond and be prepared for any new type of incident. And so the scorecard itself is really fabulous because it lives online. You can go in as a region or an economic development organization and respond to it at any point to baseline where you are, to then report each step, each progress step that you've made. And you can submit all of that to EDA as part of your response to the new guidelines that they have created.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And just in case anybody doesn't know, what is the EDA?
The Economic Development Administration.
Yeah, and that's part of the U.S. federal government, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's interesting that the government's supporting this. David, I want to follow up with you and ask you about the benefits, but it seems pretty clear to me that this is a tool that not only identifies resources and opportunities, but it sounds like it also is an educational opportunity to bring a community up to speed on what they need to do. Is that correct?
Yeah, the best way to teach someone something is to give them a questionnaire.
Yeah,
I learned that.
yeah.
And by answering the questions, number one, they realize what they know. Number two, they realize what they don't know. And number three, they come to realize what they need to do, the areas in which they need to move forward. So what we do is we ask 50 questions. They deal with, as Calandra said, everything from floods to hurricanes to pandemics to socioeconomic and economic disruption. And the questions are structured so that the answer says, okay, have you put together a guide for your businesses to help them learn about the importance of having their own resilience plans? And if you haven't, here are the steps that you need to take. So it's both a questionnaire, a self-assessment, and it's also an instructional instrument. So with each question, if they haven't completed it, they get the steps that they need to take to complete it. And then if there's more, information that they need, we can customize programs for that. So to me, it's a really holistic solution to the issue facing communities, both with their existing companies and with prospective investors, to answer that question. What are you doing to increase your resilience and reduce the risk of disaster damages to your businesses and your community?
Is this a tool that you are going to be delivering through economic development organizations, or how does that part work?
Well, our clients are economic development organizations.
Okay.
So as Calandra said, there are across the country, there are economic development districts, which are regional in nature, and they cover most of the country. And that's a primary client of ours because, as Calandra said, they have to include this in their submission for EDA support. But there are also, a myriad of city economic development organizations, regional nonprofit economic development organizations that aren't planning and development districts, and their potential clients as well.
So, and they in turn can use the tool to help educate local and regional businesses. Is that correct?
Businesses and stakeholders.
So what are the other stakeholders?
Public sector leaders, the business community. And that's the intent. The intent is through educating them, they can in turn educate their stakeholders.